Yeah, thanks, Ross. You got me here. This is working.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this is my first Zoom thing, so this is exciting for me. But yeah, big thanks for Ross for putting this on and Altus Guides and everybody that's tuning in. This is pretty awesome. Super fun to be able to do stuff like this. I really enjoyed listening to everybody yesterday. But yeah, hopefully everybody is out enjoying some sunshine today. And yeah, I'll get into my presentation here. I think I have figured out how you do this all. Um, yeah, I think that is the gist of it there. You guys can see my screen, hopefully. Um, so this presentation is, I did it for POW, Protect Our Winters Canada in the fall here. And through talking about the environment and doing changes in my own, I found out that we've done like this pretty incredible job of like really taking power away from individuals. I think, we go and talk at these schools, and it just really felt to me like people thought it was out of their control. And I think with this current coronavirus, it's super interesting. It's like never been so more prevalent how big of a difference an individual could make. So I found this on the internet. Whoever said no person can't change the world never ate an undercooked bat, which is obviously false news, but I thought it was pretty funny. It's a very like funny thing for right now, and the yeah, just the way the world is right now. It's like very much like an individual can make a huge difference right now. So it's really important to stay at home and do these cool things like the Zoom meeting here, or do whatever you can. Um, so yeah, I grew up. Some people know this, some people don't, but I was actually born in Australia. Um, that's my mom and dad and myself. I thought I was Superman at a very early age, I guess, and was always clambering around. And then in when I was about 5, I moved to Calgary and moved to the mountains. That's Jasper down there. That's sunshine, taking air. And my parents were always very good at getting us out in the mountains and showing us nature and helping us appreciate. We lived in the city, but every weekend we were off out in the mountains and really appreciating nature. So I have my parents to definitely thank for that. And they're always very respectful. That's me and my sister. My sister is a former World Cup ski racer, went to the Olympics a couple times. And my parents are actually from Britain, and so when we moved to Canada, skiing and ski racing was like this very they had no idea what it was, and of course I got right into it and brought my sister into it. That's for the ski racers out there, it's Johnny Kuchera and Francois Bork on the podium, and myself with some blonde hair. And then ski racing just like didn't really work out for me. It was yeah, for whatever reason. And so I joined the Rocky Mountain Freeriders. And on the far left, there's Kevin Yurtis. There's me with like a gross goatee, and Guy Mowbray, who started it. And so this was me I was one of the students at the start, and this had a huge influence on me. It was this like, just like doing something super similar, but doing it a bit different, and like having that same feeling of like being together in a group and like really enjoying ourselves. And so when I graduated, so that was like the year before I graduated high school, and I graduated high school, I moved straight out to Canmore, started shooting photos. These are Ryan Curry photos. Was shooting photos like every opportunity I had, and the one down on the far right is actually the very first photo I ever got published. And yeah, just kind of started building my name up. That's Eric Horlifson, like one of my best friends on a cat ski trip in the early days. I showed that, just the good memories. And this is the very first day we bought snowmobiles. So that's my snowmobile. It's an old 600 at the bottom of Boulder in Revelstoke. That's Eric, first day on his sled, which ended up in this very quickly. an old 670, and we really had like quite the learning curve that went along with learning how to snowmobile back in the day. They are not what they are today. But for me, this was like a huge deal. The snowmobile was my entrance into the matchstick films. I didn't have big budget to film with out of helicopters, and so the snowmobile was like really like my investment in getting into these films, and for me personally, it really paid off. So it's like a really interesting part. Like everyone says, snowmobiles are such a bad investment, but somehow for me, it really did work. But so that's like kind of my entrance in, and then all of a sudden, things went really well for me. Things were growing, and I was getting to travel around the world. The first picture is me and Mark Abma in Argentina or Chile, sorry, and then that's Morocco. That's signing posters for Into the Mine with JP Auclair and crew. Photo of Matthias's from Switzerland, I believe. Japan, yeah, kind of like all over the world. Iceland with Andreas, New Zealand, and things started getting better. Started getting on the cover of magazines. That's like one of the favorite photos of all time, the eclipse with Ruben Krabby there, and so yeah, things are going well. It's like I'm making a living skiing and kind of have this like opportunity where I can travel wherever I want, kind of do whatever I want, and not really thinking too much about the environment at this point, and really just stoked on the ski aspect of things. And that's super great. I know about climate change, but like to me, it's just like too big of a thing to like really handle. And then so here comes along Guilt Trip, and so this was like a big like turning point for me. So we went to Greenland. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's on the Solomon TV YouTube channel. And so we go to Greenland, and we brought a climate scientist with us, and we did some work and the whole thing. Well, let's try and play this video. We'll see. So far, videos haven't worked very good, but it's just kind of a short clip here. And I think Alan, the scientist, really sums it up perfectly.
Why do you think we invited you on this trip?
Because from what I understand of what you do, you're a sort of globe-trotting bunch of privileged but talented skiers who've probably got a bit of a guilty conscience about the amount of air miles and carbon footprint or something.
For me personally, like I mean, I'd be lying if the bottom line isn't the skiing. I mean, the opportunity to come and see a place that very few people see, I mean, that's an opportunity that is really hard to say no to. Yeah, so hopefully that worked for you guys. But so the interesting thing about that for me was we went on this incredible trip, and I think the start of that really paints the picture perfectly. You know, it's like, okay, we have this guilt and we don't really know what to do about it, and so we go on this trip, and for me at this point, it's still about the skiing. I'm like, look at this incredible adventure we went on, and it was amazing. But the big changing point for me was we took it on tour. And so we went to Toronto, we went to New York, and we met these people there that really didn't spend a lot of time in the backcountry, and they really couldn't believe that we were seeing these effects of climate change, and they were asking us what we were doing about it. And so you're standing on stage, and we knew this was going to happen, and you kind of you said a couple things, but really at that point, all we were really doing was like, well, we made this movie, you know? And so that fall, it really went down this rabbit hole. And if anybody has been down the rabbit hole of environmentalism, which I think a lot of people have at this point, it can be like a deep, dark hole that's kind of hard to get out of. And a lot of times you're like, hey, let's like run for the mountains. I'm like going to stop traveling, going to stop it all. You know, like I so bad for this world. And so, you know, that's like one feeling, but then you're like, okay, no, let's like bring it back to like a more realistic side of it. And like, what can I do? What can I change, to make this happen? And so for me, a big one, it was pretty obvious, like when you start diving into it. And for me, it was travel. At that point, it was like 27 flights around the world, like racking up the air miles. And so it was like, okay, like let's tone that back a bit. Like where do I need to be? Where do I not need to be? And just by looking at that, like now I'm really down to about 2 a year. I go to France for some Solomon meetings every year, which is a great time, need to be there. And then if there's like one big, amazing trip that comes up, that's really hard to say no to, I feel like I can justify that to myself. But no more is it like this needless, like, okay, I'm just going to fly there for the sake of flying there. And like that being said, I have had the privilege to travel a lot of these places. So that's just my own thing. And then the next one is like big and simple, and it's been talked about a lot, is changing the diet. And I was like a total meat eater before. I kind of was like one of those guys that didn't really think that like a meal was food without the meat there. And so I've changed my diet. I'm pretty much 100% vegetarian now if I have the choice. And it's been really interesting for me, is it's really come down to like now I just prefer to eat that way. I have really enjoyed that side. It's been like a nice side effect of it all. At the start I was like, oh, this is going to be really hard, and turned out to be super easy and really enjoyable. And then the biggest thing for someone like myself was like using my voice. I think that we've invested a huge amount of time creating this image for ourselves. So like let's use it to say something important. So that's Greg Hill and I chatting at Mac. I guess that was 2 falls ago when we launched POW Canada. And so yeah, I really love the POW side of things. That's been like a super fun organization to work with, and I'll get to a bit more of that later. And then the other thing we did is we wanted like kind of a follow-up for Guilt Trip of like where we've gone now. And so we decided we were going to go on this like epic ski tour. We started talking about it kind of like mid-season, and we were going to do the Southern Monashees. We were going to start from our houses and then ski back to our houses, and we were going to bag all of these peaks along the way. And we had like we had these attack bags. And like we were gonna have like our big bags on top, and then we'd have our Avi gear and our attack bags, and we'd like be ski touring along and be like, "Look at that line, we're gonna attack!" And yeah, that didn't really happen. Greg got really sick right at the start. He had severe diarrhea and very low energy, and most people would have quit, but he is probably the most stubborn human that I know of. And so we continued, but the weather sucked, and nothing seemed to go our way, and it was quite honestly not the most enjoyable trip. But then that same spring, like after that, he had this idea, and he had bought an electric car, but the electric car wasn't here. And he really wanted to go and do this electric road trip down to the States and do all the volcanoes electrically. And so this was done. This is done in a Nissan Leaf, which at the time had like 150 kilometer range. So really, like we started the trip with like, this is the idea. We have no idea if it'll work. And so we just kind of started it with like, we had the time and we're like, okay, this like might last a week or this might last 2 weeks. It really depends if this is stupid or not. And so we just went for it, and it turned out it totally worked. It was like unbelievable amounts of fun. Neither of us had ever really done the volcanoes before, but just like a little bit more like we were doing the same adventures, and like you just had to do a little bit more thinking, a little bit like, okay, how far is it to the next charger? How can we plan our day around that? And just like taking all the skills that we've learned in the mountains and how we operate in the mountains, and then applying that to the drive up. And I mean, now with the electric cars, you don't need half the amount of planning we had for those trips. Like that trip was very silly, but very fun at the same time. So where I'm at now, so that, I mean, that whole section there, that got made into a movie called Curve of Time, which is also on the Solomon Channel, which I really enjoyed. Jordan Manley made it, and it's like really artsy. One of the kind of the cooler like journeys of what we went through. So those of you who know me, I have like a huge F350 truck diesel, and I still have my snowmobiles that we went back to the beginning, and I did this trip this summer to Greenland and came back from it and was like, I'm selling it all. I'm done. Like, I'm buying an electric vehicle. And once again, like, talk myself down on that. And I've been talking about going veggie oil forever. And so I finally veggie oiled the truck. And I'm super psyched on this. Basically it's a 2-tank system. And it takes the veggie oil, recycled veggie oil. So I've been getting it from our local ski resort here, Armar, and some of the local restaurants in town. I put it in the tank, and then I can run veggie oil. And so the big thing about that is it really cuts down on the harmful nitrous oxides and stuff like that, the particulates that diesel puts out. So it's not a perfect solution for everybody by any means. I'm pretty psyched. Like, to be totally honest, I love my big stupid truck with stupid mud wheels on it for like no reason other than the looks or whatever. I mean, I do like to use my truck for being a truck, but having that running on veggie has been like a huge success for me, and I've really enjoyed that process. Got it done on Vancouver Island. Dr. Bjorn, highly recommend him. That was a really good experience. And then back to POW. So this is chatting in Edmonton in the fall. I was there with Kate Edgar, and this is talking to 700 plus students. I think we talked to over 3,000 students this day, and they all, like, this kind of goes back to like the fact of like empowering people. And so the cool thing, and what I'm about to do here is we are calling the member of parliament. And so you get up there and you talk to the kids, and you get them all psyched, and you're like, hey, do you think your like member of parliament would care what you think? And of course they're like, no. And you're like, well, I do. And so you call them up, and sometimes we'd get their secretary, sometimes we get a speakerphone. This is right before the elections, and it was really cool. Like, they're kind of chatting the whole time and whispering, and then as soon as you hear the phone ring, they just like kind of can't believe that you're actually calling the member of parliament. And you could even like look around at the teachers and stuff, and they were like super surprised that you're actually doing it. But I think to me, like, that's the point of this, is that as an individual, you can really collectively use your voice here. The other thing I'm doing is ride sharing on the snowmobiles. Kind of a funny photo, but yeah, to be honest, like, I very rarely go just snowmobiling anymore. Right now, I pretty much like will use it to access to go ski touring, or more recently I bought a big tent that has a wood stove in it, and so instead of sledding into a zone for like a week straight to film or whatever, we just sled in once, set up camp, and then just hang out there for the week, and the snowmobiles just kind of sit there. Yes, we're still using them, but we're using a whole lot less gas than we used to. And yeah, that's Mark Abma, just enjoying the pure bliss of walking around the mountains with nobody around, and using less fossil fuels to do it. So yeah, I got a few do's and don'ts here. Do, reduce, reuse, recycle. There's another one there now called refuse. This is surprising to me, and this is a little bit different with coronavirus now, but I see so many people still not using water bottles and to-go cups. It's like, it's a very simple thing to do, but very, very easy. And there's still tons of people that aren't doing it, and that makes a huge difference. Eat more sustainably. So, I mean, I don't think everybody needs to be a vegetarian. We don't need these like extremes, like just you know, Greg and his family, they do weekday veg. I know a lot of people in Revelstoke have really like come on board with that of like, okay, these days I eat vegetarian and these days I eat meat, and whatever it is, I think we just need to like cut down on that sort of thing. This is a big one. And right now, like, what we're dealing with the economy and lots of people have lost jobs and stuff like that is challenge yourself to waste less food. It's going to be better for your pocketbook. And we still waste like up to 40% of our food in North America. So that's a huge, huge thing. And we spend a lot of energy making our food. If you are making changes, don't hate on the people that aren't. I think we just kind of need everybody on the same side. I feel like we are in such a polarized environment these days, especially when you get into politics and stuff like that. Like, just because somebody else isn't making the changes that you are doesn't mean that, like, you don't know what's going on in their life. So just making everything more positive. And then on the same token, when you see people making changes, be stoked that they're making changes. Are they going to be perfect? Like, I still use fossil fuels. I am not, like, the truck, it's still using diesel. It's not perfect. So we have a saying at POW, progress over perfection. And the same goes with the, like, electric cars. Are they perfect right now? Not even close. You know, there's tons of problems with lithium and the battery side of it, but it's the path we need to go down to get better. And that's the really important thing to see there, I think. Walk or bike more, super simple. Be empowered as an individual. Individuals have as much amount of influence on this world and is never more obvious than right now. So to me, like with the coronavirus, I think that's a really, not that there's much positive going on with the coronavirus. I think that is like a real positive thing. It just shows how important like individuals are and individuals' actions. What we can do, so we'd love people to join POW. It's free membership, strength in numbers. So that gives the outdoor industry like a voice when it comes to Parliament. I think that'll become increasingly important. Educate yourself. I think that's like the most fun that I've had about this, especially like talking to the kids and stuff like that, is like if I'm going out there and like I can talk about skiing all day long and it's fairly easy for me. But to talk about a way more convoluted issue of climate change, like I really had to educate myself and go down these different paths, and that's been really fun. Like I love learning and love challenging myself and that sort of thing. Influence with your wallet. This is huge. You know, it's like they say voting with your wallet, but if we continue to buy plastic water bottles for one-use plastic, they're going to continue to make them. If we stop making them, they'll make us something else. But hopefully that's more environmentally friendly. They're just like looking for the dollars. So voting's a big one. This kind of came out in last year's election time, and I think overall for our purposes, it went really well. When we get back to school and stuff like that, Hot Planet Cool Athletes, that's a thing, and you can get in touch with the POW guys and request that at your school. They're really fun presentations, and I think the kids get a lot out of them. Make changes, and no change is too small. I think this is a big one, because as soon as you start making a change, all of a sudden you take something like climate change, which is this like really negative thing with a lot of negative connotations coming along with it. As soon as you make a change that's positive, no matter how small it is, maybe it's like changing all your lights to LED bulbs, all of a sudden you have like a positive spin, and that feels good about climate change, and it makes it a more of a positive thing, and you're like, okay, what else can I change? So much of the time when we get into these things, it's like, you know, if you're standing at the bottom of a mountain and you want to go ski touring for the day, and you're like, holy cow, there's no way I'm going to get to the top of the thing. Like, how big is it? But when you really break it down into those sections, the smaller sections, like, okay, well, let's go to there and we'll have a snack and see how we feel. And then all of a sudden a couple hours later you're at the top of that mountain, but it's breaking it down that really makes it more surmountable. Don't be afraid to be a hypocrite. I think that's a big one. Like, so many people are scared to take that first real step into changing their lifestyles because they're scared to be called a hypocrite. And we live in a fossil fuel based society, so it's okay to be a hypocrite. And we're all hypocrites. That's just something we have to get over and move on with. In the future, there might be some tough choices about how we live. But right now we're just trying to get the majority agree on the major issue of climate change. So once we agree on it, then we can figure out how best to tackle it. But we're still trying to agree on that part. And we need all of you. Like I keep going back to, it's like, it's more obvious than ever right now that individuals do matter and that you can make a big difference. So we need everybody to really take that on and make this stuff a priority. That's just the Protect Our Winners. They have some really awesome, the Protect Our Winners Canada stuff have some really awesome stuff on their website about little things you can and can't do to help out. But the biggest thing right now is to sign up. So that's it. I think maybe I'll try and answer some questions if anybody has any questions or anything like that. Got like a minute or so. What brand of tent with the wood stove? Yeah, that tent is sick. It's a Cabela's tent. It's an outfitter's tent, and I definitely highly recommend it. I've spent a lot of time in the base camp situation, and so I'm super stoked on it. I've got it for 2 years now, and highly recommend it. Right on. Well, I think, here we go. Here's a bunch. What sorts of costs associated with converting the engine over to veg oil? So I think you could do it cheaper. By the time I'm said and done, I'm into it for about $6,000. And that includes my filtering system at home. And that was done by Dr. Bjorn on the island, and I've had no problems whatsoever with it. So I'm pretty stoked. Like, a lot of people have definitely had a lot of problems just within the actual system. And so I haven't had any problems with that. So that's been really fun. And then it basically comes down to like how good your veg oil is. So you, Adma would tell me this, because Adma's been doing this for like 10 years in his truck, and he was like, you'll find out very quickly like which restaurants you want to eat at and not, because you find out how much they clean their oil. And so we got a super good source at the Winterstoke Mountain Resort, and their oil's been really awesome. And so so far it's been pretty smooth sailing, not too many disasters yet. And it's pretty fun, like cruising along in a huge truck running on veg oil. The very first time I did it, I have to tell the story, I was actually with Izzy Lynch driving home from a POW meeting, and I just got it done, and I was so scared to press the button that like switches it over to veg oil. And I finally did it, and you're like going along, like all this anticipation coming along, you press the button and like literally nothing happens. It like just keeps coasting. You're like, of course. Like, what activities are you taking part in the quarantine? So what I've been doing, we've kind of like, I've been hanging out with Greg a bunch, and my girlfriend Jessie, and we've been like pretty fired up on growing food. Not totally sure on where the world's going right now, and so that's kind of the avenue that we're going down. We're like super stoked on getting the seeds started. We've been building some greenhouses, and haven't been missing it too much, or at least this, like, I'm making myself not miss it too much. But that's been like a good thing to like keep our energy going. Thank you guys. I think Leanne and Douglas are up next. pretty stoked to check those guys out. And yeah, I think we'll hand it over to Ross here.